On today's show, we'll explore what restructuring means.
People are now talking about restructuring Nigeria, something that we desperately need.
We heard former military head of state, Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, calling for restructuring.
Gani Adams asking for restructuring.
Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has also joined the clamor.
Even the Catholic Church in Nigeria called for restructuring, saying there were too many killings.
So what is restructuring, and what kind of restructuring specifically are we advocating for?
Should Nigeria break up? And my answer to that is no. But please don't tell me Nigeria as it stands is non-negotiable. For me, this is a fallacy. The nation has got to be negotiated. Negotiation includes ensuring that there is no marginalization. Negotiation has to do with control of resources. Negotiation has to do with structuring the nation in a way in which the components, the constituents, are not feeding an over-bloated center to the detriment of their own development.
2 words: fiscal federalism. Pictured here is a graph showing the natural resource revenue sharing formula for Nigeria. Natural resources contribute about 65% of Nigeria's total revenue earnings for the government. As you can see from the graph, 46% of all natural resource revenue goes to the federal government. Only 23% is shared by all the 36 states. That's just about half of what the federal government gets. Similarly, all 774 local government areas have to share just 18% of the natural resource revenue. This, of course, excludes the 13%, which by the derivation principle is reserved for the state of origin of the natural resources.
It is this unitary system that got foisted upon us by the military in 1966 that has created a lot of the anomalies we are faced with today. By the first decree they made, suspension and modification decree, number 1 of 1966, they appropriated 2/3 of the powers and influences that belong to the regions onto the federal government. By the time they were leaving, they have appropriated almost 80% of all those powers and authorities that belong to the regions or to the central government. Powerful. So making the central, to make matters worse, all the major means of resources from which regions or states could be run had been appropriated to the federal government. The only way we can get out of things like the Northeast insurgency called Boko Haram, the Middle Belt killings by the Fulani headsmen, the Southeast call for a Biafra, the Niger Delta militancy, is by removing power from the center, giving it to the states.
The present system of revenue generation and allocation is far from fiscal federalism. It brings about the excessive dependence of the states on the central government, a situation that is the polar opposite of federal values. But don't just take it from me, these leaders know.
After 19 years of uninterrupted democracy in the Fourth Republic, it is now an indisputable fact that today's Nigerian states essentially have been reduced to parastatals of the federal government and are addicted to the monthly allocation they receive from Abuja. There is nothing as addictive as states that are dependent on their monthly share of revenue from crude oil sales, and the only way to get them to manage their economies in an economically viable way is to cure them that addiction. Nigeria needs to be restructured.
We, of the opinion that states should have control over all their natural resources within their territory. Fiscal federalism presupposes the revocation of the Land Use Act of 1978, the Solid Minerals Act, as well as the various Petroleum Gas Acts and amendments since 1969. The right of ownership, control, and exploitation of these and other assets should be returned to the states and or the federating units.
Preponderance of opinion from our preliminary review is that the federal government needs to shed weight and return powers and resources to the states where most government functions can be more efficiently undertaken. For the states to take on these powers, they need to access a greater share of the nation's resources.
It makes sense for states to be more autonomous. Fiscal federalism simply makes sense. It is expected to increase national productivity and development and to facilitate accountability of the government. This is why individuals from all over the country have bought into the idea. Our memorandum/proposal, prepared by the Naija Youth Revolution, advocates for greater fiscal autonomy. That is, for each region to have greater control over its resources. Fiscal federalism. It is not a radical idea. This is the practice in the USA, Canada, and the UAE, among other successful nations. Our present system has led us to being the poverty capital of the world. It's about time to change it. Sign the proposal today and be part of the change. We have little over 24 hours to act. The National Assembly gave only a 2-week window to submit proposals for constitutional amendment. The deadline is Thursday, 10th September, so sign the proposal now. Thank you for your vim.
Therefore, the first thing we must all understand is that Nigerian unity is negotiable and must be negotiated to the satisfaction of all of us, all the ethnic nationalities.
NaijaYouthRevolution@gmail.com